Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor trespassed on my private property and trimmed my hedge without permission." I have had several issues with my next door neighbor Wendy regarding where the property line actually splits between our two yards. Anytime we try to do something to our backyard or wheel in our trash cans on the side of the house, she tries to tell us that we are in her property and keep your crap on your yard. The issue was, however, that we wanted to redo our backyard layout and put some serious yard work in. I did not want to hear anything from Wendy, so my husband and I actually got professional land surveyors to come out so we could officially start our renovation plans. I was surprised that this worked out in our favor, and it turns out that a portion of the property line actually belonged to us rather than her. It was a small section along the property line towards the back of our yards, but regardless, I was not going to complain. Actually, I kind of just wanted to shove that in her face, but I don't enjoy confrontation, especially with her. So I just minded my own business and we continued planning out our backyard renovation. Before we started any actual projects in the backyard, we made sure that we had everything planned out first. We wanted to make sure we had everything ready before we started, so that it would be way more efficient and faster to get it done. In our plans, we had planned out having a new garden bed on the side of the yard. We wanted to put it on the side closer to Wendy, so we made sure that we were not going to put it super close to the property line. We had left the metal pins and stakes the land surveyor had used because we did not want her to say that anything we were doing was on her property line. I figured we could take them out in a couple of weeks anyways after the tension over the property line subsided. Turns out, it would never subside. We had started our official renovations and remodeling about 2 weeks after the land surveyors left, and if our neighbor was not complaining about the property line issues still, she was complaining about something else. One day she came over to complain about all the noise the workers were making, and while yes, it was pretty noisy, it did not seem like it was too noisy when we were inside our house, so I could not imagine that it was worse for our next door neighbor. We ended up with a beautiful new outdoor patio with special stones and tiles. And not too far from the patio was the garden beds for which we had planned. They were filled with beautiful colorful roses and flowers and had hedge bushes to create a sense of our own space within the backyard, because there weren't really any fences in the neighborhood. The hedges stuck out of the garden beds slightly, and while they were near the property line, they were nowhere near over the line or on Wendy's yard. As a matter of fact, they were actually about 2 feet away from the metal stakes that marked the boundary line. And yes, we did actually measure it. Well, it only took about a day for Wendy to complain about the hedge bushes. She first stated that they were too close to the property line, and I kindly let her know that while they were near the property line, they were still 2 feet away from the actual line. I was not going to change my backyard up again as long as we were following the rules, which we were. After I let her know that we would not be changing anything about the backyard because everything fell within rules and guidelines, she started complaining about the aesthetics of the hedge bushes. I also kindly let her know that what we did with our backyard and house was none of her business. And it did not matter if she did not find it aesthetically pleasing, because it was not her house. I was tired of dealing with her at this point, and I honestly didn't know how she could keep complaining about stuff that did not matter. She had no shame. Well, she was not done yet. Just 2 days later, in the early hours of the morning around 7 AM, we heard a chainsaw in our backyard. Upon further investigation, Wendy was in our backyard without our permission obviously, cutting our hedge bushes in half with a chainsaw. I was so pissed off, I immediately called the police officers. It may not have been an emergency situation or appropriate to call 911, but she was in my backyard with a chainsaw. She had no right to do this, nor did she have permission to enter my backyard. Although it may have been an overreach in calling the police, it ended up working out in my favor surprisingly. And I gotta say, Ripe Stars, I'm not sure if that is exactly an overreach when your crazy neighbor trespasses on your property with a chainsaw. I definitely would call the police as well. How about you? Let us know in the comments. I explained everything that had happened up until this situation. I even showed them the metal stakes left in the ground from the land surveyors. With all the information I gave them, a police report was created and Wendy was actually taken to court. I was not sure what I was expecting, but I honestly did not expect for Wendy to get the karma she deserved. After several court dates, Wendy was sentenced to 3 months in jail for trespassing since she did not have permission to enter our backyard and for intimidating us. She was also ordered to pay us $1,000 for property damage and had to pay another $200 in surcharges. I bet Wendy learned her lesson this time. I was just excited that I didn't have to hear her complaints about the property line or other dumb things for at least a few months. Although, hopefully by the time she is out of jail, she will not have anything else to complain about. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would hope in a situation like this that a neighbor would learn his or her lesson, but in the case of Wendy, I'm not so sure. Either way, if you enjoy the stories about crazy awful neighbors, then I would really appreciate it if you could also like the video, because it would be absolutely amazing if we could once again reach 1000 likes on the video. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled Church Revenge. Background: there is a high school and a school zone on a heavily traveled city street where I live. The high school sits on top of a hill and there is a church right before the end of the school zone. Right after the top of the hill in the church parking lot entrance, that is where the police is sitting trying to catch people going over the 25 miles per hour speed limit. They sit right in the entrance, facing the road, using their radar gun on cars that drive by. Usually the people popping up over the top of the hill are coming back down slightly over 25 miles per hour, because you are likely to go slightly over 25 after trying to get up the hill, so it is a very obvious speed trap. I was gotten by the police. I was set on cruise control at 25 miles per hour and he ticketed me for 27 miles per hour. And by the way, Ripe Stars, how is that even possible that you can get a ticket for going just 2 miles per hour over the speed limit? That does not really seem right to me. Anyway, I told him I was set on cruise control at 25 miles per hour and he said, "You still broke the law, son. No excuse for that. This is a school zone and you're endangering the kids." I had to try very hard not to reply, "And you drove 45 miles per hour to 55 to catch up to me in a school zone, so don't tell me that you care about keeping these kids safe." But I did not want to be tasered and beaten. I'm not a police hater, but I just don't want to deal with the police. Which, by the way, Ripe Stars, is probably, no matter where you live, not a bad idea. Well, the local pastor did not like the police using his church parking lot to issue citations to people. Many of the folks driving on these roads are lower to middle class, and a single $170 citation literally takes food off of their table. That's not very Christian-like of the police to do this, according to this pastor, so he decided to do something about it. Revenge: the pastor called the local police department and asked them to stop using his church parking lot to scan for speeders. The police rejected him and told him that they are parking on public easement. I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard this argument before and it is apparently legit. Citizens just have to suck it up. I know all these details because I work out with his nephew. I was still super butt mad about the ticket, so I told his nephew to tell the pastor to get a cheap automated fence installed since they only open the church for church services days outside of school zone hours, Wednesday night, Friday night and Sundays. These fences are smart connected, so he can remotely control these types of fences from his phone. Sure, an extra step, and with the fence installed right up to the public easement property line, there is not nearly enough for a cop car to safely park there anymore. The fence cost more than $2,500 though. It did not matter. The pastor was not having it. The fence is comically an eyesore. It is just this weirdly placed fence on an entrance to the church parking lot, but no other fences around anywhere on that side of the road. It definitely stands out as a giant middle finger to the police. I laughed out loud when I first saw the fence, which was absolutely satisfying. The fence has been up for about 4 weeks now, and I have not seen a single person pulled over when I drive through that zone. The zone is now a safer place to drive through because people are not pulled over on the side of the road with one of the lanes pretty much blocked and no shoulder. It's a city street. And also, we don't have overly zealous police speeding to pull over single parents driving 27 in a 25 anymore. You know, because kids walking home from school could get hit from speeders. Here is a visual aid to help it all make sense. And ripe stars, if you want, you can pause the video here to take a look at the picture. Anyway, I expect the police to harass this pastor in some way, because that is what happens. But for now, this is some pretty nice pettiness on the pastor's part. I wish I could take a photo of the fence, but it would definitely be obvious where this was if I did. And Ripe Stars, a user in the comments, wrote an interesting comment. He said, in NSW, which I believe stands for New Southern Wales, Australia, the state government decided to increase road safety and help get police back to policing by introducing speed camera cars. These sit by the side of the road with a radar unit mounted on the roof and a camera inside the rear of the car that takes a photo of cars over the speed limit. Most of those caught are less than 10 km per hour over the speed limit, and the speed camera cars are not parked in dangerous areas but areas with high traffic volume to maximize revenue. The whole program is run not by one police or the government, but by a publicly traded investment bank of dubious repute. When the cars were introduced, they had sign writing similar to a police car and were required to erect a sign before the car saying speed camera ahead so everyone would slow down, arguably making the road safer. 1 year ago, the government announced the car sign writing and signs were no longer required. Now the cars look like every other car, just parked at the side of the road. Not as bad as some other states where the speed cameras are hidden in garbage bins, but still pretty devious. Since then, revenue has increased 11-fold with no impact on the road toll. The vast majority of the fines issued were for exceeding the limit by less than 10 km per hour. My house is on a nice, safe, straight road which rarely has any accidents. However, what it does have is a nice line of liquid amber trees which provide a nice shady spot for a speed camera car to park for 4 to 5 hours. So I just made my own speed camera ahead sign and I put it out when I see the car parked there. Now in NSW it is illegal to warn someone of impending apprehension, in other words that they are about to be arrested for something, but I cannot tell if each car is speeding, so it is a blanket warning, not a warning targeted at one speeding driver. Also, it's not a police operation, so nobody is being arrested. Police driving past have seen me putting out the sign and not stopped. I often see police cars slow down when they see the sign though, along with everybody else. Although I am doing it only to stop people getting ripped off, it does actually slow people down, unlike the speed camera car, which lets you speed up to it so it can send you a fine. I've heard of other people in other parts of the state doing it too. The NSW Premier has recently hinted that the speed camera ahead signs are about to be reinstated. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I am curious, what is your opinion on speed cameras versus speed camera ahead signs? Do you think that speed cameras make sense, or would signs just be better? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled Scooter Revenge. Some info first. I am disabled. I use a walking frame to keep me from falling over on a regular basis. With it being Christmas time, I have my frame decked out with cute hanging ornaments that include a set of jingly bells that chime as I walk. In other words, I am hard to miss, as you can see and hear me coming. Currently, my mom is in the hospital, so I am visiting her on the daily. Normally not a big deal, but not so much today. Our city hospital has a courtyard that you have to cross to reach the front doors. Said courtyard is paved in cobblestones, and cobblestones are the bane of my existence. Uneven, lumpy, threatening to make me fall as my walker catches the edge of every single one, I swear. As I was shuffle hopping my way across the courtyard this morning, trying very hard not to kiss dirt, a woman, let's call her Karen, came barreling by on her oversized electric scooter. She was easily going at her top speed, whatever that was, far too fast for an area filled with patients in wheelchairs on crutches and me. Karen was a woman on a mission, headed right for the doors while clocking a Mach 10. She flew so fast and so close to me, she almost knocked me flat. I stared at her in shock as she zipped by without so much as a howdy do, let alone an apology. After I got steady on my feet, I contented myself with a huff and a glare at Karen's back and resumed my shuffle hop towards the door. Hey, the Canadian glare of disapproval is not to be trifled with. And now it is revenge time. When I got inside, I saw Karen having a chat with security. She wanted to skip the pandemic check-in station. He was telling her no. At that moment, Karen saw me come in and tried to beeline it to check in before me. Well, I was not about to let her flatten me again. So I hauled ass ahead of Karen and cut her off. Insert behind me. I then had the most wonderful 5 minutes of pure petty vengeance. Since Karen was in such a hurry to get places, I slowed down and took my time walking to security at the check-in desk. Hello, it's such a pretty day, isn't it? Oh, you need my vaccine passport? It's on my phone, 1 second. Oops, sorry, scroll too far. Here you go. My ID now? Let me get that for you. You want me to sanitize too? Sure, very important, yes. Let me make extra sure I do a good job. Back of my hands in between my fingers. Yes, I do need an inside mask. Thank you. Let me just take a moment to change mask before I go into the hospital. All those vulnerable patients cannot be too careful. Thank you for your help. You have a great day. Behind me, Karen was huffing and puffing. I'm very sure security knew exactly what I was up to as she was grinning. When I was done and started my shuffle hop across the lobby, I heard Karen talking loudly behind me about being late. I gotta admit, it warmed the bottom of my dying heart and I was beaming behind my mask. Peppermint scented perfection with some glitter on top. The next one is titled Parking Revenge. I ordered to pick up at my local grocery store, which has designated parking for pickup orders. Someone who seemed to have a regular order decided to double park in the last 2 pickup spots remaining. Luckily, there was an opening just opposite of these 2 spots, so I parked there in the meantime while waiting for a worker to be available. Eventually, after a worker finished filling up another customer's car, I notify them that hey, I am parked here close by, as there is nothing else available. But since I was not in a designated spot, I seemed to perhaps get a lower priority than those linked to a designated numbered spot, so I had to wait much longer. After enough time, the person who double parked taking the last 2 designated spots came out of the store with their groceries and loaded up the car. As they prepared to leave, I decided, why not have a little petty revenge to make them slightly inconvenienced? As they started their car, I decided to take out my phone and pretend to be busy with it while standing in a position that would prevent them from backing out of the parking spot. Not too close to the car, but not too far either. But also with my back slightly turned more towards their vehicle, so it would seem that I'm just oblivious to the vehicle and perhaps would continue walking any moment after looking at my phone. This went on for about 15 to 30 seconds when I got a lucky new break. The grocery worker came to deliver my items, so I stopped the grocery worker kind in the middle of the parking lane, still with our backs turned to the vehicle wanting to back out, and started to try to use my phone to verify the grocery items being delivered. Then after another 15 to 30 seconds when the worker noticed the reverse lights as the car tried to back out very slowly, the worker started moving the cart out of the way as I pretend to be oblivious for a little while longer to extend this petty revenge as long as possible. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.